Welcome to the HIT podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we're dropping into your feed with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, but really well-curated conversations going on in the space. This week's episode will be no exception. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And without any further ado, I get into it with my friend Daniel Hallak. Daniel, how are you, sir?
I'm doing grand, sir. Yourself?
Really, really well, man. Really, really well. I'm excited to have you on. And I don't even know where to start with all your accomplishments and all the things you're just so well versed in speaking of, and your book that's coming out soon, man. Woo! So just, if you don't mind, can you give the audience just a quick overview on kind of what you do, who you are, and kind of, why I'm so jazzed up for this episode? Although you know why I'm jazzed up. You're the man.
I love it, man. Well, I'll start with the professional, moving to the personal. So I'm a partner at the Sage Group, where we focus on helping owners take a path to value and get that rocking chair moment at the end of their career where they look back and say, every owner has to transition. I did it really well, and I got strategic value first and foremost for the business. But actually, that's the end point. The real win is I got personal value. I'm excited about the life I'm going to go to. And I have a plan for the future that I'm jazzed about, and I don't regret anything in terms of the business. And then that professional value. I grew as a human. I grew in my craft and my impact on the industry, and of course, there's strategic enterprise value. I've been connected with wild leaders over a number of years, as well as a strategic partner with the Sage Group, focused on really solving the trust equation. I know you had Dr. McKenna, founder of Wild On, a number of weeks ago on the podcast.
The man. I've known him. Speaking of books, I'm like, hey, Dr. Rob, he's got like Patrick Lencioni. He's got like all these like big names. There's Stephen Covey writing forewords, writing like blurbs and stuff. So when you're talking about the folks that you're partnered up with, if you guys missed my episode with Dr. Rob, go back and catch it. But when Daniel's talking about the people he's working with, these guys are amazing, as are you, sir.
Yeah, so I love being able to partner with them as well and bring tools to be able to measure trust and build trust, because trust ends up being one of the things that helps block or unlock value. If an owner, a CEO can trust themselves, then trust their people and create a trust fabric throughout the organization, it's going to accelerate their value premise. So that's what I do on the professional side. And I've got the new book coming out, The Trust Circle, which is all about how do you build the right people around you, what I call relational investors, so you can become a leader who stands the test of time, and so that you do trust yourself and can unlock the value in the places you're serving. On the personal side, my wife and I just celebrated 17 years.
My guy, congrats.
2 weeks ago. Man, that's awesome. We've got 4 kids ranging from 15 to 2, and that keeps life pretty interesting on the personal value side of my life. So that's me in a nutshell, bro.
That's the dude. That's awesome, and congrats on just everything going on the personal side. You guys are wonderful people. With respect to the book, I think it's a great place to start. First and foremost, like, just to maybe get me a little inside baseball, what's the process like? I mean, like, I know you've done a bunch of research and been in this for a long time, so like, you just have like notes pages in your iPhone that you circle back to, new research, all of it. Like, talk to me about, like, when did you decide? How do you decide to do this, and what are some of the steps? Because I just think that in and of itself is really interesting.
Thanks for asking. It's really funny. I like to think that this isn't a leadership book as much as it's a book for leaders. And so the genesis for me, it's a lifelong dream and a 13-year project in the making. So 13 years ago, I'm in grad school and I'm working with leaders. I've over the last 20 years really seen this epidemic of isolation. And I saw it at lower levels of leaders. And as I matured in my career, you go from working with the frontline leaders to the mid-level leaders to the senior leaders, and then the top C-suite or board. And you start to realize this epidemic of loneliness and isolation. It's not just something that is felt at the lower levels. It's ubiquitous across leadership, but almost as a rule, the more senior you are, the more lonely and isolated you're going to be, and the less likely you are to have people around you to support you to get through whatever you're going through. And so I began to realize this is truly a big deal. And so I started writing notes. I started doing research in 2013. I thought, is this even going to be interesting to people? So I decided to test the market. I wrote a bunch of articles on concepts from the chapters and put them out there. Magazines grabbed them. People liked them. I thought, okay, if there's something here, let me start putting it all together. Wasn't till 2010 though that I sat down in June 2010. A picture just popped up in my memories. I was like, that was the day I wrote my first chapter on a work trip. And Toby, I don't even know how I got this book out because I've got a full-time job and 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I own a business. I'm busy. I've written it mostly on airplanes
Yeah.
and little bits and pieces at night when the kids are asleep. But it's really been driven by, if I can write something that helps a leader get connected and move from isolation to that connection, the impact on their personal life, their family, their marriage, their kids, their work could be dramatic. So the process has been long. I don't even know sometimes how we got here and got it done, but I'm super
Dude, you
excited.
know what?
And
Okay, here's the thing though. As you know better than anyone, like the old expression, you want something done, you give it to a busy person, right? And
yes,
that's what's hilarious and amazing about it. But the funny part about you riding on airplanes and end of the night and stuff like that is if you take that as a kind of throwaway comment, you're like, oh, this is like your throwaway time. But that's not how the brain works. So your brain is, and I know
no,
you know, but you're working on it all day, all the
yes,
time, kind of under the surface. And when you get that, that's why you have your most revelatory thoughts like in the shower, right? Where you're just like,
yeah, 100%.
your brain is finally allowed when you're on the plane, the distractions stop a little bit and you can go, okay, now I can dump all that kind of flow state thoughts that my brain had been working through. And honestly, man, I think that that's really the best way to sort of put some of this stuff down. So I'm not surprised to hear, as you said, a guy, a business owner, this, that, and the third, 4 kids, that those are the pockets that you get to write it in. But that's the spaces where your brain
Yeah.
finally gets to say, Daniel, let's get this out. Let's get this on
Well,
paper.
and Toby, you nailed it because airplanes have been a funny thing. I live in a small town, and so I have long. It's hard to get in and out of where I live. There's long layovers, and so let's say I'm going out for a work trip, and usually the flight in, I've got to finish some deck or whatever. There's something I've got to do. My rule for myself was always the flight back is the book.
Yeah.
I just almost never do anything on the flight back. So as soon as I get on that flight, I bust out the book. I'm typing. I'm writing. You're up 30,000 feet. Your head is clear.
Yeah.
I would not get internet. Just gonna write. And then to your point in the airport, I'm like, I got a 5 hour layover.
Yeah.
Boom. This is great. Let's find a good spot to post up. So
Yeah.
that ended up being that time. And maybe even coming off of client engagements where
Yeah.
a lot of times
Yeah.
I've just been with that leader who is the person I'm writing the book to,
Yeah.
or they're a story in the book, or one of the anonymized characters. So I think that's what fueled and got it done. But it's definitely been chipping away for a long time. And really, what the flashpoint happened was a couple years ago. I got the chance to do a TEDx in Manitou Springs.
Yeah, you did.
The topic I did was chapter 3 of the book,
Okay.
and I got a call 2 years later, an email from the TED people. There's like 60,000 TEDx's a year. People don't
Yeah.
realize how many there are. I got an email 2 years later. I thought it was spam, Toby,
Yeah.
because it just it had all the markers, and it was the TED people from the Big TED saying, "Hey, we want to feature your talk." I ignored it
Yeah.
till the TEDx people I did mine with. They said, "Hey, TED is trying to reach you.
Yeah.
You get in the emails," and they said, "Hey, we want to actually feature your talk." So they feature a handful a year. They featured it on the Big TED page. They blasted it everywhere. I'm getting buddies sending me emails saying, "Hey man, I just saw your face in my inbox because I'm subscribed to TED Talks." And so as soon as that happened, a publisher reached out and said, "Hey, loved your talk. It spoke to me personally. Saw you're connected with Rob McKenna. Do you guys have any book projects?" And I thought, yeah, Rob's got a book that's mostly done. I've got a book that I finished 2 years ago, and it's just kind of sitting here.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty cool thing, Toby, because it just happened. I wish I could say I architected it, but
I don't think that one
I was
architects
ready.
these things though. That's not really how this stuff goes, right? It's sort of like, luck is the intersection of where like opportunity meets preparation, right? It's not just
Absolutely.
luck. It's all the stuff you've done all along the way to chip at this and chip at this and chip at this. And I think like
Yeah.
any big project, right? That's why I tell my kids, it's like, hey, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, dude.
One
You
bite
just
at a
have to do
time.
this stuff little by little. And that's really, I think, an inspiring kind of story for you to give us a little bit of that background, which I think is super cool. And thank you for that. I
Yeah,
want
thanks
to
for asking. I
ask you
appreciate it.
something that maybe resonates personally, and I don't mean to just like graft some of your ideas onto myself, but I
Please
do,
do.
I think about this a lot, man, where like, I have a lot of peers at work. I've been in this job for almost 20 years and have changed in title all the way up to president, right? And so now when I'm meeting with people that, haven't been at the company for years and years and years, like I think they just see the title of president or something, and it's like the me dumping in and to be like, hey, how's it going or whatever. It's like it's not as easy as when you were just like some associate coworker, and you kind of get to be in the locker room with everybody, and then at some
Yeah.
point you don't. And what I'm circling back to
Yes.
is the isolation that you talked about, and the sort of issues that come with as you grow in your role in a company and into more and more executive leadership roles, that you were saying the isolation and I don't want loneliness like to your words, but just
Hmm.
the I think difficulty connecting like you're one of the people when like I don't think the people know if you're one of the people, and kind of how does a leader listening to this, long story short, kind of
Yeah.
still be one of the people if they feel like they're one of the people when no one else sees them as one of the people, or the title alone makes it just so difficult. It's a long question, but see where that takes you.
Man, I love that. I addressed this even in the first chapter because I think one of the challenges, even thinking of what do I do with it, is just understanding where it stems from. And we need leaders. That's the first thing. So the that type of role, somebody needs to be responsible wherever the thing is, whether it's a family or a business. But we then often have unrealistic expectations of leaders, and the role, just by the nature of the role, is isolating, and then you throw on people's expectations. So, Rob and I will often talk about the fact that as a leader, as that top person, there's things you legally know. You know that you're legally unable to share, right? So the idea of full transparency is kind of a myth, and yet everyone wants you to be transparent. So they want you to be transparent, and yet they also want you to be firm and unwavering, right? And so they want the person who's going to be able to say, "This is where we're going. We're taking this hill. Let's go!" Right? They want that at the same time the humanity of being able to acknowledge if you don't know the way. But if you
Right.
only share you don't know the way, then you're losing confidence. If you only say we're going this way, they say, well, maybe he's not actually in touch and sensitive and vulnerable or connected. And so there's these seemingly contradictory things, I think, that make the pressure so hard. I'm supposed to be firm and decisive,
Right.
but also collaborative and making sure you all have your input. So like those factors just make it. I think being able to be aware that that's the case gives the leader permission to go, okay, I'm not doing something wrong here. This is just the nature of the beast. This is the role. And once I've reconciled myself to that, now I can be able to figure out who do I need around me to help me in the business or outside the business, and how do I engage with people at the appropriate level to be one of them, but also not one of them at the same time. So I don't know that
No,
doesn't
it
get
makes
into
sense.
all
It's
the
like
how, but I think that's a starting point.
your charging the hill analogy is great, because it's like, let's say you had a leader that had whatever 200 soldiers, and we stormed a hill that had 1,000 guys, and we ended up taking the hill. Then at the end of it, people are like, wow, that guy's a great leader. And you're like, well, what we wanted was transparency. I'm like, no, you don't. You want this guy to look at everyone and go, guys, listen, we're probably not going to make it. I think we're all going to get slaughtered, but we got to do our best. And I hope that I can catch them with the sun in their eye. No, you want the guy, like you said, who says, guys, we're going to run through a wall. We got this. They're a bunch of farmers. We're
Yeah.
a bunch of soldiers. This should be easy. And off we go. And then you take the hill, and it's like, good. I'm glad the guy wasn't
Yeah, you're
necessarily
proving in
super.
the retroactive, but that person shaking their boots going, "This is my job. I'm probably going to take a bullet," right?
Right.
You so that is the challenge. And then I think with that too, um, you know, we need people inside the business to support us, but for a leader to be aware, especially if they've grown up in a business or they've been promoted and they have peers, it does it does change the dynamic. And so when I talk about the what I call relational investors, I make this whole premise: you need different people for different reasons in different seasons. I think every season of leadership is almost like a season of parenting. Your leadership is, you may have the same style, but your approach is going to flex based on the life stage of your kids or the life stage of your business. But so we need different people around us. I think it's critical for leaders to realize they need somebody outside some buddies, doesn't have to be a big circle, but who they can come to on that personal board of advisors for a variety of things, whether it be perspective, insights, or guidance. But they also do need people inside the business who maybe are providing them honest feedback. That's one of the things I see is one way they can connect with, their former peers or the people who are leading under them is they leaders I don't think struggle to get feedback. They struggle to filter feedback. And so what I mean by that is the senior leader hears about all sorts of crap. They're hearing about all sorts of things, but what's just complaints or noise and what's actually signal and something they need to pay attention to and course correct for themselves or the business. So I think even having a couple key people in the business who they trust appropriately, because they don't know if something could change politically and all of a sudden that person who is their advocate and ally is now an adversary. So I think there has to be some wisdom and caution. But hey, who are the people internally who are going to let you know how that all hands talk actually landed? If you in your big rah actually exuded fear and uncertainty or overconfidence, or to tell you how that change you're thinking of making is wrong, like who's going to tell the emperor they have no clothes? You have to have some of those people internally. And I think that's one of the ways that they can begin to enlist who's going to help me filter the feedback that I would trust. They know I have their best interest in mind, and they've got my back too. Counterbalance that with people outside the business.
That's all the time we have for you on this week's episode with Daniel Hallak. We ran a little bit long, so what we're going to do is pick up next week with part 2. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Join us next week for the awesome conclusion. Really just a great conversation. Great dude. Thank you to our sponsors, Rula, Excel Health, True Hue, Montage Insurance Solutions, the guys keeping the lights on. We're blessed to be here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.